And welcome back to Crash Bandicoot 2.
Can we bear it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, the yo-yo's a nice touch.
Yeah. So I have a slight confession to make. I got the crystal for air crash off screen.
Aww.
It'll make sense once we get there, and I'll point out where the crystal is when we go back for a second trip. It's just a way for me to streamline the process. So here's one of the more famous Easter eggs. You jump on this bear a couple of times. You get 10 lives for that. It works once per save file.
Aww.
The bear doesn't seem to mind, though. Anyway, it's time for the next boulder level, Crash Crush.
Oh, good. I actually think these are kind of cool.
Yeah, they're great. They're some of the more iconic set piece types in the Crash series.
Yeah, this is what you remember from Crash Bandicoot, right?
Yeah. I mean, speaking of what people remember, like I was going through this, for a relatively influential series, there are surprisingly few pop culture references to Crash Bandicoot in other media. Like, the only one that comes to mind is there was this episode of The Simpsons. Oh, by the way, Coco has a different crawling animation. And that's what happens when you run into a mine. As I mentioned before, it just slows you down. It doesn't actually hurt
Damage.
you. So there was this one episode of The Simpsons where Lisa was sick, and she was supposed to study, but she ended up being addicted to one of Bart's video games called Dash Dingo. That is very clearly a parody of Crash Bandicoot.
I remember that.
Don't ask me to remember which season it was. Also, this is the only instance that I can remember of like a really small split path that has a platform that sort of kicks you out and back onto the main path. And that kind of thing never really shows up again. Yeah, and as we've seen before, there are now variations on the electric gates where you have to slide or spin under. Also, you ready for some bullshit?
Yes, always.
Yeah, everybody runs into that mine the first time they play through this level. Everybody, without exception.
So you're saying they weren't entirely fair with this design?
No. Although it is easy to dodge when you know it's coming. And now, if this was the original game, I probably could have made that jump. I've talked before about differences in the physics. The main issue that I have with this isn't what they changed, but what they didn't change. That the level design is still pretty much one-to-one, and there haven't been that many tweaks to accommodate the new controls, which are better than they were in the original, but they weren't. These levels weren't tweaked for that. Although at least we got Crash 4, which has Crash Bandicoot 4. It's About Time, which came out a year or two ago, and that game has some of the best level design in the series and also the best controls. And that's the progression of the bullshit. But in that case, you know it's coming because of the other mine. So I'm more forgiving of that one. Also, I mentioned before that you had to use the speed boosts for something. This is the level because there's an iron crate right here.
Oh, so you gotta be way ahead of it to get that.
Oh yeah, you have to hit every speed boost and never stop running.
I don't remember if I called it out before, but I love the skating animation.
Yeah, I like Coco's skating animation in particular. I'm pretty sure that's Debbie Derryberry, who did the voice for Coco. In the original, it was one actress credited and she never did anything else again.
Really?
Yep. Also, would you believe it? This is actually the very first sewer level in the entire franchise.
What? That's one. That's the first one.
Yeah, there aren't that many. And I don't want to swear on it, but I don't think there are any sewer levels in Crash 3. Also, these are sweeper robots. Basically, it's a way of sort of making a gameplay gimmick out of knocking back enemies with the spin attack. Then you're expected to knock it into those fans.
We rented these from Raven Rabbids, so...
Exactly. This is what the Neatbot does on his time off.
Cameos.
Yeah, and you can kind of see there's an electric eel. The eels are invincible.
Oh, okay.
So, if you remember the hint, which I left in, which is that the green gem lies behind something fake. It's this wall over here.
What?
I mean, I'm of two minds on that. I mean, the boxes kind of lead you toward it, but still, as it was in the original, it was pretty bad.
So that came over pretty much 1-to-1.
Yes. And don't ask me how, when you're standing on a metal platform, it isn't conducting the electricity. So we grab this gem, and just like before on Hang 8, we can just death warp to the next checkpoint, and we still keep the gem. It's very handy for speedruns. They make a lot of use of very specific death abuse. And those robotic rats, they work like the spiked turtles.
But rats, yeah.
Yes. They're just thematically appropriate reskins of the turtles. That is very satisfying.
Belly flop on a bunch of boxes.
Yeah, it's again. You'd think that there would be a little more 2D stuff. The Crash Bandicoot 2 has more 2D sections than the first game did. But it's still, I'm surprised it didn't take more advantage of 2D merging into 3D, etc. It comes up a little later in Crash 3. There were some just outright 2D games, spin-offs for the Game Boy Advance. That was during the Vivendi era of Crash. There were two games. I think they were Crash Bandicoot: The Huge Adventure, or Crash Bandicoot XS in Europe. And the other one was Crash Bandicoot 2 Entranced. They basically took other ideas from the classic Crash games and just made them work on Game Boy, or Game Boy Advance.
The lack of 2D levels, or the minimal amount of 2D... Oh! Overhand hanging.
Yes, overhand hanging. This mechanic, this is the first time. There's also a bit of it in Crash 3 as well. I don't know what these enemies are called, but they're invincible enemies that patrol the hanging sections here, and you just have to avoid them.
They also don't seem to like to stay on them. What I was gonna say about the 2D levels is they're great in this, but not having them in abundance might have been a Sony thing pertaining to game licensing on the early PlayStation. And I will have to look for a citation of this. I remember hearing at some point that they didn't want too much 2D on the console to show off its 3D capabilities, and that may have shown through in these, especially being earlier games.
Yeah, I've heard that as well, including there was something about Konami. There was some sort of insistence on getting Castlevania Symphony of the Night to stay on PlayStation and stay in 2D.
Yeah, I specifically recall that being a fight.
10 of 25 crystals. You're on your way. I'm running low on power, so communication from this point will be difficult. Remember, I'm counting on you.
Also, for absolutely no reason, you can leave Coco back in the portal where she came from. There is no reason for doing this. I don't know why it's here.
So it just removes the Coco option.
Yeah. These are the KOMODO brothers. They are actually bosses that were meant for the original game, but Naughty Dog couldn't find a way for it to work properly, so they were moved over to the sequel. They also have some incredible music.
Yes.
This is a pretty straightforward one. You take Komodo Joe, who's the skinny one, and knock him into Komodo Mo after he's finished spinning. And it's pretty standard stuff. So if you want a bit of background as to who they are, according to the Crash Bandicoot 2 instruction manual, cold-hearted and cold-blooded, the brothers form a dangerous combination of strength, loyalty, and leadership. Komodo Joe is the brains of the operation. While not physically powerful, he relies on speed and cunning in a fight, and is a master of the deadly art of samurai swordplay. Komodo Mo is not necessarily the most intelligent, but when he lacks in brain power, Komodo Mo makes up in size with unbelievable strength and the force of a runaway freight train. And I cannot believe I read that at the exact moment the boss fight ended. That was unintended timing.
Do you think that this was a Three Stooges reference?
Oh, almost certainly, yeah.
Hey, Mo! Whoop, 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 whoop.
Oh, I forgot to mention as well. I keep meaning to bring it up in every Crash video. I haven't done it yet. Just speaking of comedy references, I've mentioned before that, you know, the intention for the first game was meant to be like an interactive Warner Brothers cartoon.
Sure.
So Brendan O'Brien was the original voice of most of the main characters, but starting in about 2008, 2009, something like that, Crash has been voiced by Jess Harnell, who's also known as Wacko on Animaniacs.
Oh.
Yeah, I like to think that is more than just a coincidence.
It's not. It's a good choice because he has a pretty amazing range, and also an impressive singing career.
Yeah, Jess is also the voice of Ripperoo, the current voice of Ripperoo, replacing the stock yell from Lady and the Tramp.
Which in and of itself is a pop culture reference, so it's not that this series doesn't have them, it's that they're all out of time.
It's the pop culture reference of not having the money to have a distinct sound effect, so they went with whatever was easily available to license.
In the sound library that everybody uses, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, next time we'll be going to the third warp room. The boss of the third warp room actually also was meant for the original game and was reused. So that'll be interesting. That's in video 6. And in video 5, we're actually going to find the way to go back to Air Crash and get that last gem.
Oh,